an orphan seeking help and praying with faith. Welcome to the Wisdom of Angels channel. Today, we will share an extraordinary story demonstrating how angels are always by our side, subtly and powerfully providing comfort and protection in the most challenging times. This is the story of Dennis, a young orphan facing loneliness after his mother's death. It shows how angelic presence can manifest through ordinary people in our lives. In a moment of profound sadness and despair, Dennis finds support and guidance through a mysterious woman named Kate, who appears when he needs it most. Dennis and Kate's journey invites us to reflect on the power of love, compassion, and faith, reminding us that even in the darkest moments, angels are always working behind the scenes to guide and protect us. Get ready to be moved and believe in the transformative power of angelic presence in our lives. This is a story of hope, love, and redemption, showing how angels are always by our side, lighting our path, even in the most difficult moments. Let's embark on this incredible journey together and discover the power of angelic protection in Dennis' life. Share this message with the people you know. I'm sure they will appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Now, let's move on to what happened. Dennis Porter, a little boy of just 7 years old, faced a terrible situation with his mother. Unfortunately, Allison didn't survive the accident, leaving the child completely alone. Just when he was losing hope, something surprising happened. It was night, and it was raining heavily, but Dennis and his mother, Allison, needed to return home. "Come on, honey, I've prepared your favorite meal. We'll enjoy it together once we get home," Allison said as she placed Dennis in his car seat. This routine was usual, and Dennis always fell asleep during the trip home. They lived in the small town of Griffin, but Allison worked in Atlanta, where her company's office was located. As she spent most of the day in the big city, Allison decided to enroll Dennis in a school near her workplace to ensure his proximity in emergencies. With no other relatives, they were very close. The return trips home were usually peaceful, but that night the rain was heavier than usual. Dennis was frightened by the sounds of passing trucks, but everything seemed under control. Unfortunately, that was a mistake. Dennis had fallen asleep in his car seat, and Allison was driving carefully. Then, a truck driver attempted an overtake at high speed, hitting Allison's vehicle on the side. The car was immediately thrown off the road, rolling over multiple times. Allison, still dazed and scared by the incident, turned back to check on her son, but the seatbelt and the car's position prevented her from seeing him. "Stay calm, my love, we're fine," she tried to reassure him. The boy, too scared to cry, confirmed he was okay in his seat. It took about 30 minutes for help to arrive. The truck driver responsible for the accident was the one who called for rescue. He explained that he was trying to get home in time for his little daughter's birthday, but the heavy rain severely impaired his visibility. Regardless, the man ended up missing his daughter's birthday altogether as he was taken into police custody, while Allison and Dennis were transported by ambulance to a nearby hospital. Only during the medical evaluation did the health professionals realize that not everything was all right. The doctors examined Dennis and, to everyone's surprise, found no cause for concern. However, Allison's situation was more severe. Perhaps her worry for her son and the adrenaline of the moment masked her symptoms, as it was discovered she had severe internal bleeding requiring emergency surgery. Dennis felt disoriented by the frantic activity of the doctors around his mother. "Hey kid, how about we get something to eat?" suggested a newly graduated resident doctor named Kevin, trying to distract the boy from the agitation. When asked about his father, Dennis revealed he had never met him and didn't even know who he was. The boy ate a snack and had some ice cream, but as soon as he could, he asked the doctor worriedly, "Sir, will my mother be all right?" Kevin, inexperienced in such situations, had no precise answer. He remembered the medical school advice not to make promises that couldn't be guaranteed. "Kid, I'm sure my colleagues are doing everything possible for your mother, but don't worry, okay? You'll soon be back home." Kevin stayed with Dennis the whole time until the boy finally fell asleep after much resistance. Later, a doctor appeared and informed that Allison, still in the operating room, was conscious and wanted to see her son. The resident doctor anticipated what was about to happen, so he woke Dennis and took him to his mother, lying in the hospital bed. Allison asked Dennis to come closer. She begged him to always be an honest and caring boy towards others as he had been with her, and above all, to stay strong like never before because his life was about to change. "Lastly, my dear Dennis, know that I love you and will always take care of you." Tears streamed down Allison's face as she expressed her last wishes to her son, hugging him one last time. Allison passed away that fateful night, leaving Dennis to face the world completely helpless, without a father or relatives. Social services intervened, and Dennis was taken to an orphanage. Initially, the boy resisted strongly. It was hard to accept that not long ago he had a home, a mother who loved him above all else, and a stable life. Now, all that was gone. The funeral was simple and discreet, attended only by Kevin and some of Allison's colleagues from work. The boy bid farewell to his mother with tears in his eyes, making a solemn promise. "I'll always come to visit you, Mom. I'll never forget your last words and what they meant to me." The first nights in the orphanage were challenging. His last peaceful night had been in the car on the way home. Waking up abruptly, he found the car overturned and his mother calling for him. The memories seemed to intensify at night, and in the rare moments when he managed to sleep, Dennis dreamt of Allison entering the orphanage to take him with her. Upon waking, he was still enveloped in the emotion that dream provided. He spent hours reflecting on it, increasingly isolated, as he didn't interact much with the other children. Being the new kid, he was the subject of mockery. "Hey Dennis, dreaming about your mom's ghost again, right? You should stop being so sensitive. She's gone for good. No one will want to adopt a crybaby like you." The orphanage staff seemed indifferent to this situation, letting things take their natural course. Some mornings, they took all the children to a nearby park. Although there were games and opportunities for the children to integrate, this practice had no effect on Dennis. Noticing the park was near the cemetery where his mother was buried, he would slip away from the group and run to keep his promise to visit her, taking advantage of the distraction of others. As he couldn't leave the orphanage whenever he wanted, he had to seize every opportunity. Approaching the grave, Dennis would sit and start talking about how he was coping, speaking as if his mother were there. Dennis felt the presence of a protective angel by his side in every fiber of his being. He quickly turned and found himself facing a woman with a kind smile and compassionate eyes. "Are you okay? I noticed you were crying and thought I'd offer help," said the mysterious woman. Dennis tried to hold back his tears and struggled to express the whirlwind of emotions consuming him, but the words seemed to escape him. "I know it's hard," she continued, "but I can sense you're not alone, and if I stay here with you—" Dennis nodded. The woman introduced herself as Kate, revealing she was visiting the grave of her own son, who had passed away a few years earlier, a little older than Dennis. The boy felt comforted and finally opened up about his recent loss and how he had escaped from the orphanage to be there at that moment. Throughout their conversation, a special bond formed between Dennis and Kate. They shared their pains, memories, and hopes, finding solace in each other's presence. As Dennis dealt with the indifference of the orphanage staff towards his absence and the weight of the other children's cruelty, he remained calm, remembering his mother's words and the promise he made. Dennis wouldn't let the inhumanity around him affect him. Instead, he focused on doing what was right. Kate's comforting presence encouraged him even more. It felt like an angel was there to guide him through the shadows of that grim environment. When they finally returned to the orphanage, Dennis and Kate were met with surprise by the staff, who seemed not to have noticed the boy's absence. This negligence made it clear to Dennis that he couldn't rely on the adults around him to ensure his well-being. However, Kate's presence by his side reminded him that he was not alone. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, trusting that kindness and honesty would always prevail. Kate's husband was intrigued by her revelation and agreed to accompany her to the orphanage to meet Dennis. Upon arrival, they were greeted by a simple but welcoming atmosphere. The staff guided them to the room where Dennis was. Seeing Kate and her husband, Dennis felt surprised and a bit apprehensive, not understanding the reason for the unexpected visit. Kate approached with a kind smile, conveying a sense of warmth and understanding. "Hello, Dennis. Do you remember me? I'm Kate, the one who found you in the park the other day," she said, kneeling to be at the boy's level. Dennis looked at Kate, his eyes showing a mix of surprise and curiosity. He nodded slowly, recalling the kind woman who comforted him when he needed it most. "We brought something for you," Kate's husband said, extending a small bag to Dennis. Inside the bag, Dennis found some toys and books. His eyes lit up with surprise, and he smiled for the first time in a long while. Kate and her husband spent some time talking with Dennis, learning more about his story and interests. As they conversed, Kate felt a special connection with the boy, seeing in him the courage, kindness, and resilience she admired in her own son. As they said goodbye, Kate and her husband promised to visit Dennis whenever they could. They knew this wouldn't be the last time they saw the boy, and that, somehow, fate had brought their paths together for a greater reason. Leaving the orphanage, Kate felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. She knew she had found a new purpose in her life, to be a mother figure to Dennis and help him find a loving family that would truly embrace him. Thus, the fortuitous encounter between Kate and Dennis became a journey of love, hope, and renewal. They didn't know what the future held, but they were ready to face it together with mutual support and the guidance of the angels. Kate's husband's comforting embrace wrapped around her tightly, accompanied by the sudden decision to head to the orphanage at that precise moment. Upon arrival, they were met by a staff member who insisted that visiting hours were over and appointments had to be scheduled in advance by phone. The couple tried to explain the urgency of the situation, but the staff member seemed inflexible about the rules. It was then that Kate's husband remembered what she had shared about the lack of attention from the orphanage authorities towards the children. So, discreetly, he offered two $50 bills to the staff member. Surprisingly, the staff member accepted the bribe without further questions and opened the door for the couple with a broad smile. Once inside the room, Kate instantly saw Dennis. The boy was sitting alone on the couch while other children played around. Seeing Kate, Dennis ran towards her and hugged her warmly. Meanwhile, Kate's husband began talking to the boy, kindly asking about his presence in the cemetery at such a late hour. Dennis, now more comfortable in the presence of Kate and her husband, lowered his gaze before responding. "I was talking to my mom, sir. I was asking her to take me away from here." The couple was stunned by the sincerity and depth of Dennis' words. They exchanged meaningful looks, both feeling the same urge to offer a loving home to the boy right then. However, they knew that the decision to adopt Dennis couldn't be taken lightly. Kate didn't want Dennis to feel like a replacement for her deceased son in any way, but maybe the dream she had was a kind of sign to move forward and let love bloom again in her life. After all, since her son's departure, nothing seemed capable of filling the void in her heart. After long conversations at home and meticulous planning to face the complicated adoption process, the couple decided it was time to move forward and, above all, offer a home to someone who needed it so much. For months, they strived to meet all the necessary requirements to adopt Dennis, visiting him almost daily to ensure he was well cared for during that time. Finally, the long-awaited day arrived, and Dennis saw Kate and her husband at the orphanage reception, waiting for him. With tears in her eyes, Kate opened her arms, and Dennis ran towards her. The embrace they shared moved even the institution's staff and some of the children who had previously mocked him. Dennis went home with his new family. Over time, he stopped being a withdrawn child and began to interact much better with others. During a Sunday lunch, a new tradition in that family, Dennis proudly expressed, "I thank you so much for everything, but I also thank my mom. I'm sure she somehow got me out of the orphanage because she promised she would always take care of me." Kate also expressed her gratitude, sharing that she went to church the day she met Dennis and prayed for him to find a family that would love and care for him. She never imagined that family would be hers. Dennis and his new parents made monthly visits to the cemetery to honor their loved ones. Dennis bought a bouquet of roses to decorate his mother's grave while Kate stayed by her son's grave, showing that both would never be forgotten. Kate and Dennis felt that, in some mysterious way, they were the true responsible ones for this unlikely union that resulted in the formation of a happy family once again. Leaving the cemetery, they walked to the park where Dennis ran excitedly to the carousel, his favorite toy. Watching the boy go around, his parents smiled with care and affection. Kate's presence alongside Dennis symbolizes the work of angels, who often manifest through ordinary people to offer comfort and guidance. Kate shares her own story of loss and suffering, creating a bond of understanding and empathy with Dennis. Throughout the conversation between Dennis and Kate, we perceive how her presence and kindness have a positive impact on the boy's life. Kate's act of offering help to Dennis represents the work of angels as messengers of support and care. During their walk, Dennis finds a lost wallet filled with money, which could be a temptation to run away from the orphanage and seek a better life. Dennis' decision to return the wallet to its rightful owner demonstrates his integrity and the positive influence of angels in his life. Dennis' actions reflect the values his mother taught him, showing how he honors his promise to be honest and caring towards others. The guard's reaction to receiving the lost wallet highlights the importance of Dennis' honesty and the positive impact of his actions. The scene at the orphanage where the staff doesn't notice Dennis' absence evidences the lack of care and affection in the institution. The other children's mockery of Dennis highlights the cruelty and insensitivity he faces daily. From these events, we perceive how Kate's presence and Dennis' attitude are guided and influenced by angels working to bring comfort and goodness to the world. Kate's desire for a loving family for Dennis reflects the angels' care and concern for people's well-being. Kate's dream of her deceased son suggests a spiritual connection that transcends earthly life, showing how angels can comfort us even after death. Kate's sleeplessness after the dream highlights the intensity of her emotions and her deep connection with her deceased son. Kate's return to the church demonstrates her search for spiritual comfort and faith in divine protection for Dennis. Dennis and Kate's story reminds us of the constant presence of angels in our lives, offering guidance, support, and love in the most difficult times. In the end, we see how angels act through people like Kate, even in Dennis' choices and actions, bringing light and hope even in the darkest situations. If you enjoyed this touching story, please like it, subscribe if you haven't already, and activate the bell to receive wonderful messages. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video.